my photo taste is the Pinterest, because they are the best.
Welcome to Spotlight. I'm Christy Van Aragon.
And I'm Joshua Leo. Spotlight uses a special English method of broadcasting. It is easier for people to understand no matter where in the world they live.
In Tokyo, Japan, a group of men and women walk down a city street. People stop and look at them. They are all wearing beautiful clothing. Long sleeves cover their arms. On some wearers, the sleeves are very long. They go to the ground. Some of the clothing is covered in pictures, flowers, mountains, and birds. Some are patterned with geometric shapes. Others are simply colored. The clothing wraps around the wearers' bodies. So what is happening? What makes these clothes so special? Today's Spotlight is on the history of this special clothing, Japanese kimono.
These people are part of a celebration of traditional Japanese clothing, Tokyo Kimono Week. Each year, this 2-week festival shows people the history and future of kimono clothing. It celebrates kimono through the parade that we just described. There is also a clothing show, a musical concert, and events that show people how to wear the kimono.
The kimono is the traditional clothing for both men and women in Japan. It is a simple, straight-sided piece of clothing. It is shaped like a T. Wearers wrap the kimono left side over right. Then they tie it closed with an obi, a long, thin piece of cloth. Kimono may be covered with beautiful pictures, or simply colored or patterned. Kimono can have many layers, or just 1 or 2. This depends on the event and the person wearing it.
For example, at an important event, young, unmarried women wear the most detailed kimono. Their kimono are covered in pictures and have very bright colors. Unmarried women also wear kimono with very long sleeves. These sleeves are much longer and bigger than the wearer's arms. After a woman is married, her kimono sleeves are much shorter.
The pictures and colors on a kimono also have special meaning. Pictures from nature are very popular. A crane bird means a long life and good luck. Pictures of cherry fruit flowers are only worn in spring. Bamboo and pine trees are for winter. Purple is a color for love, and white is a traditional color for funerals.
People have worn kimono in Japan since the 16th century. This was a time of great peace and wealth in Japan. Before this time, kimono were a kind of underwear, worn under trousers and a coat. Over time, the kimono became the outside clothing. At first, samurai were the main wearers of kimono, but as the middle class grew richer, they began to wear kimono too. And as they had more money, the kimono became more beautiful. Through their clothing, people were expressing themselves and showing their wealth.
This troubled the ruling class. They were worried that the social order would fall. So they made strong rules about the kimono, about the cloth, colors, and designs permitted. People found ways to avoid these rules. For example, by wearing the band color red under their clothing. During this time, the style and kind of kimono changed and developed.
Silk cloth was especially important. It was only permitted for some people. Silk cloth is made from silkworms. These insects produce very fine, thin ropes or threads. People gather the threads and make them into cloth. They dye the threads with rich colors. Cloth produced this way costs a lot of money and is very beautiful.
Then, in 1853, the social order did change. There was pressure from the United States for more trade. And there was pressure in the country too. A new government pushed for modernization. During this time, some men started to wear Western-style clothes, especially for business. However, most people still wore kimono at home, and it was still the usual choice for women. Before this, the word kimono simply meant the thing worn. It was a word for all clothes because everyone wore kimono. But now, kimono meant traditional clothes.
During this time, there were two other important changes. New technology made silk making easier and less costly. Different kinds of patterns were possible. And because of the government changes, anyone was permitted to wear silk kimono.
My photo taste is the Pinterest because they are the best. Flick to link to flick.
Brain no longer needed to return to those experiences in his sleep. And when I spoke with him, a year after treatment had finished, he told me, "Doc, this is the first time in 43 years that I haven't had nightmares." Now, this is different than erasing a memory. Veterans will always remember their traumatic experiences, but with enough practice, those memories are no longer as raw or as painful as they once were. They don't feel emotionally like they just happened yesterday, and that is an immensely better place to be. But it's often difficult. And like any training, it may not work for everybody. And there are trust issues. Sometimes I'm asked, if you haven't been there, Doc, how can you help me? Which is understandable. But at the point of returning to civilian life, you do not require somebody who's been there. You don't require training for operations on the battlefield. You require training on how to come home. And for the past 10 years of my work, I have been exposed to detailed accounts of the worst experiences that you can imagine, daily. And it hasn't always been easy. There have been times where I have just felt my heart break, or that I've absorbed too much. But these training-based treatments work so well that whatever this work takes out of me, it puts back even more, because I see people get better. I see people's lives transform. Carlos can now enjoy outings with his grandchildren, which is something that he couldn't even do with his own children. And what's amazing to me is that after 43 years of suffering, it only took him 10 weeks of intense training to get his life back. And when I spoke with him, he told me, I know that I can't get those years back, but at least now, whatever days that I have left on this earth, I can live them in peace. And he also said, I hope that these younger veterans don't wait to get the help that they need. And that's my hope too. Because this life is short. And if you are fortunate enough to have survived war or any kind of traumatic experience, you owe it to yourself to live your life well. And you shouldn't wait to get the training that you need to make that happen. Now, the best way of ending human suffering caused by war is to never go to war. But we are just not there yet as a species. Until we are, the mental suffering that we create in our sons and in our daughters when we send them off to fight can be alleviated. But we must ensure that the science, that the energy level, that the value that we place on sending them off to war is at very least mirrored in how well we prepare them to come back home to us. This much we owe them. Thank you.
I design engineering projects for middle school and high school students, often using materials that are pretty unexpected. My inspiration comes from problems in my daily life. For example, one time, I needed a costume to go to a comic convention, but I didn't want to spend too much money, so I made my own with a lighted crown and skirt. Another time, I was devastated because my favorite mobile game, Flappy Bird, was being taken off the App Store. So I was faced with a dilemma to either never update my phone or never play Flappy Bird again. So unhappy with both options, I did the only thing that made sense to me. I made a physical version of Flappy Bird that could never be taken off the App Store. few of my friends were also pretty addicted to the game, and I invited them to play as well. And they told me that it was just as infuriating as the original game. So I uploaded a demo of this project online, and to my surprise, it went viral and had over 2 million views in just a few days. And what's more interesting are people's comments. A lot of people wanted to make it their own or ask me how it was made. So this kind of confirmed my idea that through a creative project that we can teach people about engineering. So with the money made from the viral video, we were able to let students in our classroom all make their own game in a box. Although it was pretty challenging, they learned a lot of new concepts in engineering and programming. And they were all eager to learn so they can finish the game as well. So before Flappy Bird Box, I had the idea of using creative engineering projects to teach students when I was teaching at a middle school. We asked our students to build a robot from a standard technology kit. And I noticed that a lot of them seemed bored. Then few of them started taking pieces of paper and decorating their robots. And then more of them got into it. And they became more interested in the project. So I started looking for a more creative ways to introduce technology to students. So what I found was that most technology kits available in school looks a little intimidating. They are all made of plastic parts that you can't customize. On top of that, they're all very expensive, costing hundreds of dollars per kit. So that's certainly not very affordable for most classroom budgets. Since I didn't find anything, I decided to make something on my own. I started with paper and fabric.
Flick to link, link to flick. My photo taste is the Pinterest because they are the best.
Welcome to Spotlight. I'm Christy Van Aragon.
And I'm Joshua Leo. Spotlight uses a special English method of broadcasting. It is easier for people to understand no matter where in the world they live.
In Tokyo, Japan, a group of men and women walk down a city street. People stop and look at them. They are all wearing beautiful clothing. Long sleeves cover their arms. On some wearers, the sleeves are very long. They go to the ground. Some of the clothing is covered in pictures, flowers, mountains, and birds. Some are patterned with geometric shapes. Others are simply colored. The clothing wraps around the wearers' bodies. So